Usually when somebody has the word realism in a title, it means he or she is going to deflate and debunk. And I'm actually not going to. I'm going to inflate and bunk the web, which I think has not been hyped enough. I actually believe it has not been hyped enough. In part, the problem has been with the metaphors. We started with the idea that the web was an information highway, and then we simultaneously had the idea that it was an enormous library, which there's elements of sense to that, but it's impossible to explain why about 1 billion people starting in the mid-1990s decided to go on the web by saying that those 1 billion people suddenly decided that they wanted to become research librarians. That's not what happened. Something else happened. Something else drove people onto the web. The metaphors get in the way. The information highway, well, highways we use to go someplace, but for many of us, the web, the internet, is the destination. And of course, there's knowledge and books on the web, more and more books on the web. But the web is also extremely disruptive of the model that books have given us. The web is profoundly not like a book. It disputes the assumptions of books, that knowledge comes neatly packaged, that it fits between hard covers, that it's written by experts who sit alone in a room in a corner and write what's true. It disputes the idea that once we've written it down, it's done. There's a publication date and knowledge is done. The web disputes all of that. The web is much more like a public square, a new public space, which calls forth new types of public selves. And given much of the conversation that I've heard here in the day that I've been here, I also, for personal reasons, want to mention, you know, in the real public square, you're anonymous by default. Nobody can come up and demand that you identify yourself in an open society. Nobody can do that without some cause, without some reason. By default, you're anonymous. And while I recognize the reason and importance for having unique identifiers for citizens, I hope we'll also think about what we give up, what's so valuable in the public square, the real world public square, what anonymity confers upon us, and not just the right to speak, the ability to speak in totalitarian regimes, but the way in which the default of anonymity shapes who we are and shapes our social interactions and gives us some leeway and freedom that we will lose if we insist on branding individuals with unique IDs on the real world space. I know we gain a lot by doing that, but I hope we'll think about what we lose. So I'm now I'm using an analogy to the public square, which I'm trying not to do, but I can't help it because we always understand the new in terms of the old. There's no choice for us but that. We just need to be careful. And one of the key things about the web in general, I believe, is its abundance of meaning. The web is characterized by abundance, which is why metaphors keep failing us on the web, why metaphors keep being inadequate as we try to understand the web. The web is about abundance, which means the web is always more of everything, of everything. It's more art, it's also more porn. It's more love, it's also more hate. It's more intelligent analysis, it's more utter foolishness. It's more of everything. And that is part of its glory. This abundance wreaks havoc on some of our most basic assumptions, particularly ones around order and control. It wedges itself between order and control. In fact, one of our most basic, oldest assumptions, of thousands of years of assumptions, is that the larger the project and the more complex the project, the more control you need. We've assumed that, and it's been true in the real world generally. So that if you're building a small project like this, you just need one adult, the back of an envelope, some calculations, and you're done. But if you're building something larger, you're going to need managers. And you're going to need managers to manage the managers, and then managers to manage the managers who are managing the managers, and get some management consultants to give you the management strategies and philosophies to manage the managers who are managing the managers. And it works. We build these things. It's pretty impressive. You know, much as I like Web 2.0, it would not work to say, hey, come on, everybody, let's put on some waders and come bring some shovels and pitchforks and we're going to build a dam. Not going to work. So we know how to do these controlled projects. We're very good at them. Nevertheless, you look at the largest collection of human creativity ever. Orders of magnitude, larger than anything else. Orders of magnitude, by the way, larger than we were worrying about in the 1990s when we were saying, oh, information anxiety, information tsunami, we're all going to drown with too much information. We have way more information than we ever even dreamed, and we're doing pretty well. How did this happen? How many managers did it take to build the web? And the answer is none. Zero. There is nobody who has a card, a business card, that says Manager World Wide Web. And that is entirely on purpose. The internet and the web were designed precisely to allow it to grow without requiring managers and centralized control. It's the only way that it could scale beyond any of our expectations. That makes it into a permission-free zone. It is built as a permission-free zone fundamentally, for better or for worse. And governments frequently focus on the worse, but there's a tremendous amount of the better that comes with this also. No permission required means we can innovate any way we want without having to check with the government first. We can just go ahead and do it. We can do something small and fail and keep trying over and over again. The fact that there are no managers and there's no permission is what has made the internet into the single most innovative space in the history of our species, and made our time the most innovative time in the history of our species. We now know that because if you remove the control, you remove the permission, you remove the managers, we can build arguably the greatest encyclopedia ever. We can build the best existing operating system. We can build the World Wide Web with no managers and no control. We will do it. We will get together and we will engage in these projects beyond anybody's reasonable expectation. There's another field in which this is true. It's government, where we come together collaboratively to take care of one another. We expect something from government. We expect things will get done. And governments generally are quite good at that. But we expect them to get done in a way differently than we expect the private sector to do them. Our private sector could do most of the things that government does, but we look to government to do them differently. And the fundamental difference is that we expect our government is on our side. That's a huge, the government is of us, and it's for us, and it's by us. It is on our side. And to the extent to which governments fail at this, then we have a serious political problem. But government is on our side. We have, I think, a lot to learn in a negative sense here, actually, from the experience in the private sector, where business has, for a long time, for 100 years, confused itself with a fort, where the walls of the fort are walls against information. In fact, businesses have learned to use the selective release of information as a way of controlling their customers. And they call that marketing. When the business is the only one who knows the stuff and they can decide what it is the customers know, they can control their customers. And they do the same thing internally, and then they call it managing. But the one thing everybody here will agree on is that the walls of that fort, the informational walls, have been knocked down by the internet. Businesses now are actually the worst source of information about their products and services in almost all cases. They're the last place you go. You don't even bother, because you know that they're just going to, So you don't. And instead what's happening is, of course, that people are talking with one another. When the walls are down, we get together and we talk, because we actually know how the products work. We know which of the marketing stuff is true and what isn't. So we're engaged in global conversations about every product and service that ever existed. But I actually don't want to talk about that. I want to actually look up one level of abstraction. At the level at which, not the content of these ideas. I think it's very, very important what's going on in these conversations. But something else is going on as well, one level up, where the ideas are connected to one another, where they're organized. And what's going on there, I think, makes a profound difference in the nature of authority, in the nature of knowledge, of expertise, who gets to speak and who we believe. And I think this has everything to do with what's happening in government, local and national.